we need to have localization. That means Middle East companies should not go to Europe for trading. They should look to localize here in the Middle East and set up as much as cloud operator to reduce the cost efficiencies, improve latencies, and all. That is one. Today we could see that the delta of almost 400 gig capacities are being transited through the backhaul capacities or the IP transits. I think that's more important. We need to have a focus on that. Do as much as peering locally so that the whole traffic stays by and create as much as resiliency network in our entire ecosystem. And of course, when we come to bottom line, yes, the cost, the latency reduction, and operational excellencies. I think these are the key things for what I measure that the steering is important for us to be localized.
Sure. And have you, just as a follow-up question, any numbers that you see, like in terms of, okay, this much is how much latency has been brought down by, or any cost numbers, any inputs on that? Like what kind of latency efficiencies you've seen?
Today, if you could see that we are talking about latency of about reduction which go up to when you talk from an international segment, from Europe to US, we are talking about reduction of almost 220 seconds.
Wow.
And when you talk about local peering, it reduces about 10 milliseconds. This plays a very huge impact on the current network, as Sudhir mentioned on the recent cable outages on the Red Sea. I think this is very, all the operators or the customers should look into the diversity through having this local peering exchange.
Right.
I think to add to that, latency is important, but I think more is, am I going to get the content? Am I going to access the content? And today we can see that the cables are down, there's a congestion, there's limited access to the content. So I think that should be the primary objective is, create an independent peering exchange that's not dependent so much on the international global connectivity with the submarine cables. And the value here is that, Middle East is well positioned. If the cables are broken from, let's say, on the Red Sea today, the East can access the content in Middle East, and so can Africa, because North Africa uses the entire East Africa route to access content in Europe. So, it creates a very strategic point for Middle East to look at how they can bring the content into local data centers in Middle East.
Sure. Thanks, Sudhir, Shakti. Those are really great insights. And how does this whole ecosystem, like this whole peering ecosystem, how is it enabled in terms of, one, infrastructure, which is your data centers, your submarine cables? How important is each of these aspects from an infrastructure standpoint, and also from a regulatory standpoint? Are there any, concerns to really make this whole peering ecosystem a success?
Henox is built it's called High Efficiency Network Operating Exchange. And we have set up the first operational data center in Gujarat. Now we understand that there is a surge of almost from 150 tera going up to 800 tera towards India traffic. And building a new subsea cable apart from Mumbai and Chennai. So we have created the new cable landing station. Now when you talk about the whole ecosystem, I will just move away from the current topic of data centers, because the whole ecosystem consists of, one is the connectivity between the operators and connecting the various continents. Second is setting up the edge ecosystem platform on the data center. That means you are building up the whole ecosystem consists of satellite gateway, IX, IPX, and terrestrial gateways. Then you have enterprise and gaming and financial, those segments. Now, when you have set up such ecosystem in such platform, you are automatic getting all this content getting localized on that particular firm. See, today, basically, most of these hyperscalers or the CDN partners are trying to go as close as to the most populous places. Now, India being 1.4 billion population, now, of course, that is the real market. Now, we didn't focus much on the data centers, but yes, we are moving ahead with deploying about 1 gigawatt of data center in deployment in India. So that's about the whole ecosystem, what it works. And I think myself and Sudhir was from the same view that, when you have these trajectories of these, the telco platform with the edge ecosystem, and it automatically transcribes to your hyperscaler data centers requirement.
Right.
I think to add to that, and in context to the Middle East, right? So there's already enough or sufficient submarine capacity into Dubai and Oman. If you take just those two countries, I think regulatory is going to be the concern. I think the GCC needs to come together to form a body that openly allows these kind of interconnections in terms of knowledge and data, in terms of content sharing. And I think that's going to be the biggest obstacle, how they bring that together to enable the content to be shared amongst the Middle Eastern countries. So data centers important, submarine cables is very important. The ISPs are there, it's regulatory that needs to come to the party now and say, okay, fine, we are going to kind of allow this because of the bringing the data cost down into the region and creating your independent content hub. So regulatory is going to play a very important role.
Sure. And how does, I mean, one is, okay, regulatory support, but how does data sovereignty, or even say, especially for AI, right? For AI, there's a lot of focus on every country wanting to host their own training models within their own borders. So how do you see this kind of evolving with everybody, trying to establish these ecosystems in a way, right? Like a peering ecosystem with a data center, an IXP, a submarine cable. So how do you see data sovereignty playing in this entire, landscape going forward?
I think data sovereignty is it's a different topic, and I think it really needs a little focus. But I think that's the one aspect. Here we're talking about access to content. So data will remain in country, and that's going to stay as it is. But you are accessing content in terms of websites, in terms of other stuff, right? So I think that the GCC needs to come together and formalize that. So it's really about accessing content locally. This is basically what peering is about.
Sure.
Reducing the latency, creating better costs, lower costs actually, for the end user at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the reducing the TCO is very important on this data sovereignty. And two, I could find there are two segments which is industry policies are driving such things. Is that the embassies or the financial institutions who wanted to rest the entire data within the same country or the state is there. So these all things will make it as a policy. But today is just a beginning of this subject. But I'm sure that the policymakers and the regulatory team is working towards that to create this data sovereignty, as one of the key aspect for building any data centers.
Sure. I think that's super helpful. And just on that, because like you mentioned, Sudhir, that, all the GCC countries are coming together and finding how they can do this. So this is like they're collaborating together. And do you also see presence of hyperscalers and the CDNs and, the big guys like Cloudflare, everyone coming together to enable this in the GCC more specifically?
Sorry, I repeat the last part.
So I said, do you see like the big guys, like for example, Amazon, Microsoft, the regulators, everybody kind of working collaboratively to bring down this TCO for, GCC users?
Absolutely. I think we see that already, right? You see Amazon here, Google's here,
Yeah.
Microsoft coming. I think Cloudflare probably, most of the bigger CDNs, I think they're seeing the value in the region together, right? Just UAE, maybe not, but when you look at the GCC region, I think there is value in bringing all of those content from Europe and US local. So you already see that. We already see the content providers moving towards here. So I think as the eyeballs increase, they will come.
I feel yes, because GCC stands as an epicenter in the global map. We can't change this regime. So, of course, just classically, Emirates Airlines is one of the best airlines because of its the
Location.
distance location preference. And as I mentioned, that peering will be the key aspect to do this localization.
Right.
And people will look into GCC as a spot connecting west or the east side traffic is concerned.
Sure. I think that's super helpful and really good insights. Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, Shakti. Anything else you want to add about the peering landscape? Anything about your experience in Africa and how maybe the Middle East can be used as a hub to serve African markets? Anything over there, Sudhir, and of course Shakti. Also, anything if you want to add as closing remarks.
Yeah, I think it's both ways. I think today, if you look at Africa, so we have a NAP Africa, it's in South Africa. Today, the traffic is about 5.2 terabits. UAE, congratulations on the UAE exchange. They just reached 1 terabit, which is quite impressive. If we look at the future, I do believe that connecting UAE exchange to, or even the GCC Middle East exchange to AfriNAP, Africa's exchange, could provide very valuable redundancy and resilience in terms of accessing content. As we speak, we are drafting Angola Cables together with a few other companies. We are drafting a version of AfriNAP. So interconnecting all of the Africa exchanges together to keep the content local within Africa, to bring the price of data down and the less dependency on the submarine cables. So that's being drafted as we speak. So I do believe peering is the way forward, with the right content and the right strategy.
Just I would like to have few points on this. One is on the policy makers. We are trying to build the economic corridors between two continents. That means from the Middle East to India, or going via to Marseille or US. We are trying to, one, reduce the latency from the current this thing. Number two is that we are trying to help the hyperscalers. See, I think if people talk about 50 megawatts or 100 megawatts and all, it basically transcribes from what is the output from the GPUs, what being produced by NVIDIAs and all. If you look at the processors, when we talk about 20 years back, it used to be the dia size used to be 100 centimeters, which is reduced down to 6 centimeters. That means you're automatically getting a huge heat dissipation. That's the reason why there is a surge of number of kilowatts on an exponential way. So this is the mathematics behind this. So once you understand this mathematics, it helps you to arrange for the peering what type of capacity. See, today Middle East, in UAE, we are talking about close to about around 20 tera capacity going to us. So we understand how much traffic is bringing from be it Europe or Africa toward this side, and when we move to the west side from India, it goes to Singapore. So how much is the traffic we can expect to go through this, So when you build this whole story, then you understand what is the requirement of, today you typically need 1.5 tera capacity to build 3 megawatt of data center. That's how the calculation works on this, the whole story. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's from our side. Thank you, everyone. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.